Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G, and joining me today is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And today we're going to be taking a look at Pixar's brand new movie. Now this is a movie called Onward, and it's a bit of a strange film, I've got to say. It basically tells the story of, set in modern times, but it's in a town where in the past it was kind of like Middle Earth. Everybody knew magic. Magic was the way of life. There was beings that weren't human, but they've come into this modern day world and they've lost the ability to do that because things like electricity have replaced magic. People have lost all the special skills that they had. Fairies have stopped flying because they can just drive. Things like that. In this world, we find two brothers, Barley, voiced by Chris Pratt, and Ian Lightfoot, voiced by Tom Holland. Now, they've had a bit of a tragic upbringing. Their mother, Laurel, voiced by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, has had to bring them up on her own because their father passed away when Ian was just very, very young. Barley barely remembers him, but Ian doesn't remember him at all. Now, on the day that Ian turns 16 years old, they are given a scroll by Laurel, which their father left and said that the two boys were to have when they turned 16. Now, in this scroll, they learn that he was a wizard, and he's left a spell that will allow them to bring him back for one day so they get to know their father. However, because neither of them really practice magic, they both struggle to do it, and the result is only half their father comes back, the bottom half. They then start out on an epic journey that Barley has practiced for his entire life to try and find a way to bring the rest of their father back. Now, mate, this is, I've got to say, one of the strangest movies that I did not expect from Pixar. This movie kind of feels like a stoner film for the entire family, but what did you make of Onward when you sat there and watched it?
Yeah, leading up to it, I wasn't really excited by the setting or the world. Just the idea of it, it felt a little lazy to me. And then watching the movie, that it felt the same way. I mean, the movie itself is so, as you say, it's kind of so bizarre. And I remember thinking this after we saw I think we saw the trailer for this before the screening of Spies in Disguise.
Yeah,
that was the first time that I'd seen anything of it. And Spies in Disguise was another movie that was really out there. It was like, it wasn't just a Bond parody; it was a Bond parody where the main character turns into a pigeon.
Yep.
Like, it was like such a weird, like, and I get the feeling like it's like there have been so many kids CGI movies that we've had movies about talking cars, we've had movies about their toys being alive, had movies about ants and birds and under the sea and everything, and now we've reached a point where you've just got to be completely out there with your ideas for the movies because everything has already been done. So this movie's kind of like this real world but mixed with fantasy, and it's kind of like a cross between fantasy and Weekend at Bernie's, and like it's kind of just this really weird story all the way through it. And I like I said, I wasn't that impressed by the actual the setting and the world building of the movie. At least really compared to other Pixar movies, I think it was really lacking in that respect. But I was impressed by how well the third act of the film plays out and how much that really does save the movie. How well it sells the bond between the two brothers and the maturing of their characters on their quest, and kind of how that all wraps up. I don't really want to go too much into that, but just the way that it actually, I guess the way that the movie wraps itself up, really, I don't know, that really did elevate the film to me. What about you, dude? What did you think of it?
Yeah, look, I've been really surprised at how weird some of these films have been, but how good they are. All I'm going to say is if Spies in Disguise and Onward are anything to go by, legalizing weed in California has a lot to answer for. But look, both of these movies are so damn enjoyable. Like, this is something that you look at it and you think that it's like almost going to be like a Cheech and Chong style animation rather than something that Pixar would create, because like the character of Barley, he's a heavy metal listening obvious pothead. Like they don't ever mention it in the film, but it's pretty obvious about these kind of halflings that are carrying around their dead father for like most of the movie, and it's so obscure and so weird, but it freaking works. Like, maybe it's because I've been watching That 70s Show recently, but this show, like, works so well for me that I sat there the whole time with this movie wondering what was going to happen next. Like, they have some kind of great parody moments in here as well. Like, there's a couple of times where you feel like they're almost taking off Lord of the Rings. But doing it in a creative kind of way, like, and there's some characters in this that you just kind of like, you wonder what the hell's going on, but it works. Like the Manticore, voiced by Octavia Spencer, this mythical being that is supposed to be the person that can start all quests, but she's forgotten what she's on this planet for, and instead she's running like this cheesy kind of themed kids restaurant. Like stuff like that just makes this movie kind of stand out, because you never know where the film is going to go next. And like, yeah, okay, it's kind of weird that I talked about That 70s Show, because Wilma Vanderrama from That 70s Show is actually in this film, voicing Gaxton, the college friend of their father's. But it's like, this movie just has this way of making you fall in love with it. Like, there's even parts of this movie where the epic kind of journey that they go on isn't as epic as what they make out, but there's something about this film that just makes you fall in love with it, and I'm already dying to go back and see it again. Like, I want to watch it that second time, because I want to be able to watch this movie with that freedom of where I'm not there reviewing it, I'm just there to watch it. But yeah, there was so much I loved about this, and like the two brothers, Ian and Barley, it's like I just instantly loved their characters and wanted to see both of them do well out of this, with what's going on in this film.
Yeah, like I think the bond between Ian and Barley throughout the film, I think that really is a great heart for the movie to have. Like, they don't, I guess there's not a lot of movies about like the bonding between brothers.
Yep.
And yeah, they that was a really great element of the film. The movie as well, like, there is a lot of great comedy throughout it. Like, that is something that I can't criticize at all. Just there's so many moments in the movie I was just laughing out loud during. I loved Barley's car, his van. I've forgotten the name of it again. Guinevere, thank you. You reminded me before, and I totally forgot it again. Yeah, just it's basically just a normal, like a van, a stoner van, I guess. But he treats it like a horse. He treats it like his magical steed, and there's just little moments throughout the film where it does something like he's having trouble getting it to turn over, getting the engine to start up. And whenever it does start up, it kind of makes a noise. It sounds like a horse. And there's a part later on where it's driving along and like one of the wheels bursts and it starts making a noise like it's galloping. And it's really like, that's very simple things like that, but I really did find them quite humorous. And just all the way through it, I really did have a fun time watching the movie. I guess just on a basic, like, something that maybe shouldn't have bothered me as much as it should, but yeah, just I thought that the setting in the world felt kind of lazy, like, for it being a Pixar film. Normally their movies are much better in their world building, but here it was really just kind of like our world, but with a bunch of standard Dungeons and Dragons or Lord of the Rings or other fantasy influences. Like, it kind of reminded me of something years and years ago when I was first watching Monsters, Inc. on DVD, and I enjoyed the movie, but there was a special feature on that where they were talking about how, like, creating the world to match the characters, and they were really talking up the idea that the seats had holes in the back of them for the monsters' tails, as if this was something really creative that they had done. And to me, I always just thought, oh, is that it? What else have you done? And, like, here, in this movie, it kept getting to me how much this world didn't really work. How it just wouldn't really work. Like, for one, the whole idea of magic being too hard to bother with, so people use technology instead, it feels off. Like, if we had the ability to fly, we would rather do that than go about our normal flightless lives, even if it took a little bit of effort. And in this movie, it's shown as not really taking much effort at all to revert back to that natural ability that these magical characters have. Even the whole magical, actually being able to perform magical spells isn't shown as being that difficult. It's something that Ian manages to pick up over the course of 24 hours, but everybody in the world just can't be bothered doing this stuff anymore. They just go about their normal lives. Just little things as well, like cars in the movie just look like normal cars. So you have the brothers, their mother's boyfriend, their mother's new boyfriend, who is a centaur, needing to awkwardly squeeze himself in and out of his car. And the brothers, they run into a gang of pixies who, instead of flying, they're riding chopper motorcycles, and they have to have like a dozen pixies per bike to ride the thing. It all looks kind of awkward. And I mean, you did say something though that made sense, that this is kind of the point. I guess it was kind of the point that the people that they've turned their back on their natural. What they are. Like, a centaur shouldn't be riding around in a car, he should be running.
Yeah.
And so you had said that, and it's like, yeah, I do, like, that does, I guess that does make sense. I just think that it was something that maybe, it was a little bit of a rehash of something that WALL-E did better, where humans had grown so fat and lazy to an extreme that they just sat in these chairs and all their needs were provided for them, rather than actually putting in the hard work to grow something or to take care of the planet. And that was kind of what the point of that movie was. I don't know, just I think it worked there, and it didn't really work here as well. What did you think of that, dude?
Yeah, it didn't seem to worry me as much, but I would like to have seen more of it. Like even in everyday life now, we see people doing things that that they consider like easier, but at the same time, it's like got a bad effect on them. And I'm thinking of things like how many kids these days get driven to school, whereas in our age we would have walked to school. And as a result, you get like a lot more kids that are fighting obesity, and it's like, well, you wonder why your kid is fighting obesity, but you drive them somewhere that would have taken them 5 minutes to walk. Like, I kind of saw this movie making points about stuff like that, like where we see magic as something wonderful and something we want to try because it's not something that we do every day, but these guys kind of grew bored by it. And I guess I kind of think of like different toys that kids have had over the years. Like when I was a kid, when you went to the show, everybody wanted one of those like kind of it was like a Ferris wheel kind of thing that you held in your hand and the wind blew the paddles around. The kids these days, if you gave that to a kid these days, they'd be like, what the hell am I going to do with that? And throw it straight in the bin. But to us, it was like something fantastic and something that you wanted to have. And I kind of view this movie in the same way. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all to learn that this movie was put together by like a group of 40-year-olds thinking about what life meant to them, like when they were kids, like all the stuff that we thought was so fascinating when we were kids, the new generation kind of aren't obsessed about. Because the really interesting thing in this movie that I found was that a couple of generations ago, everybody was into magic and stuff like that. Barley is into those kinds of things, and he's considered a freak. Like to the point where when he tries to protect like these magical sites, the cops come and get him, like because he's just they see him as a nuisance or